Welcome to the season premiere of Problem Solved, the IISE podcast. We're back, everyone. It's season 4. I'm David Brandt, Digital Marketing and Communications Manager for the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers. And if you're still listening after that obnoxiously long title, we thank you. In this new season, we're devoting several episodes to IISE societies and divisions. We'll also have a continuing diversity of topics that include insight into the lean coffee experience and a chance connection between two ergonomists surrounding the end of the Vietnam War. But first, we had a chat with Amelia Mink, founder and CEO of Data Science Connect, about making data science accessible to all and a sneak preview of her keynote presentation at IISE's Lean Six Sigma and Data Science Conference in September. Amelia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, David. I'm thrilled to be here.
To get our audience on the same page from the start, what is your definition of data science?
That is the million-dollar question in the industry and beyond. Kind of from a high-level perspective, data science to me is leveraging this massive amount of data that we're collecting on a daily basis now. I think the amount of data that we have now versus even a year ago has multiplied exponentially. And so I think data, a question I get from my parents and my in-laws and the generations above us that we respect so much, even ask, what is data? And that's and even people outside of the industry, what is data? So it's any type of information. It's not just numbers. It's any type of information that we're collecting that can be leveraged, that we can gain some sort of knowledge from. So that's sort of the high level premise of what data science is. Technically speaking, right now, data science is sort of this Venn diagram of tons of information, tons of data that we're collecting, and then it has a strong math component, which is statistics and linear algebra and graph theory. But then there's a third component that really it's the powerhouse to data science, and that is all this computing power that we have now, and there's a strong programming component. And we might talk about this kind of later. It's sort of a shift we're seeing in the industry, but previously programming was very manual. But now we're seeing a lot of low code, no code platforms that are enabling data scientists to sort of take their hands off the keyboard from a coding perspective and apply it more from a problem solving, analytical perspective. Kind of more seeing the patterns, the relationships, the behavior of data, and just kind of flexing that mathematical component too, which is, like I said, it's statistics, it's linear algebra, it's inverse matrices, it's graph theory. So there's a lot of really core math components that lie within data science too. And the last part of this is just sort of what we're seeing in data science trend-wise is that we're seeing a lot of, because data science is so expansive now, we're all sort of becoming data scientists, whether we like it or not. And so there are a lot of specialties popping up within data science and a lot of sort of niche areas. So you'll see people kind of hanging out in different parts of that Venn diagram. And then you'll see just industry folks who are not chosen data scientists by nature, but who are using a lot of data. And I'm kind of in that with we're all data scientists now. So that makes the data science definition very important. And I'm sure it will kind of continue to evolve too.
We're certainly feeding the data, I think, is really the component in which us as individuals play a role in data science between our devices, the things we view on the internet, the things we buy. Just data's everywhere now. And I certainly think that Answer covered the gamut. Yeah. I wanted to mention, too, that you're going to be one of our keynote speakers scheduled for the Lean Six Sigma and Data Science Conference taking place September 19th through the 21st in Atlanta. But we did want to take this opportunity to introduce you to our audience, many of whom we hope to see at this event. So let's start with your academic background. You earned a bachelor's in business management and entrepreneurship from Georgia Tech and later earned a master's in data science from Northwestern. How were you introduced into this field? Because I imagine when you were deciding what your career path was going to be, I don't imagine data scientist was the first thing that came to mind.
That's a great question. And I also quickly just want to say hello to the entire audience, and I look forward to seeing you on September 19th and 20th. To answer your question, my path to data science was a very circuitous one, as most data scientists are. I grew up, I was really good at math and science. And so I thought, I'm going to be a doctor. And like a lot of folks who are good at math and science. And so I went to Georgia Tech undergrad, and I was a biology major. And years of biology taught me that I didn't really like biology or lab or any of sort of the sterile clinical part of science. And so that was a really conflicting turn of events for me, because I had spent my entire life telling everyone I met, and kind of all walks of my life were headed towards the pre-med route and the medical school route. And so it took a lot of soul searching to sort of come to terms with the fact that I don't see myself in a sterile environment. I didn't see myself doing the medical route. However, I was not ready to give that up completely, because I had spent years planning for it. And so I, right out of college, I shifted to a business major at Tech, my senior year of college. It was actually my fifth year at Georgia Tech, which is not very uncommon. But my fifth year at Georgia Tech, I did like 26 credits of business each semester, and graduated with a business degree, just short of a minors in biology, or like a co-major in biology. So graduated from Tech with a business degree. I wasn't sure if I remember talking to like Porsche about marketing opportunities. I was like none of this felt really right at all. And a mentor of mine she's a really well-known endocrinologist in Atlanta, was like, listen, I remember I had 1 week, I think, out of school where I wasn't working or doing anything. And this should have been the time where I was like relaxing. And I had a TMJ. My entire jaw was like, I was like, should I start planning for grad school? Like, this is a mess. So anyways, she's a practitioner too. So I was like, I'm coming over. She was at a large medical practice within Northside Hospital. And she said, how about we get your foot in the door? You can shadow the practitioners. You can shadow the CEO. And I was like, great. I'll start on Monday. And so I got in there and very quickly realized that the clinical day-to-day operations were of no interest to me whatsoever. And almost immediately, which was kind of hard to tell her, because I think her entire plan was, we'll get her into med school. She's going to love medicine. But I really gravitated towards the business side of healthcare. And the CEO was very data-driven, and I have a lot to credit her for, but she ran a lot of data-driven analysis behind just about all the operations within the organization, and pretty quickly wrote my job description and was like, this is what I would do. This is what it's called. And it was when it was before data was really even like much of a thing, especially data science, but it was back in like 2010, 2011. And so I did a lot of research. I figured out that it was sort of, my function was sort of driving the analytics and the data behind the performance of the organization. So I said, we'll call it a practice performance analyst, which is actually a well-known job title now, especially it's all throughout Northside Hospital, but it's actually throughout other industries too. And I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I started getting my hands dirty and realizing how much data we had and how much data was at our fingertips, and very quickly got pretty frustrated by sort of my limitations in Excel. And we had massive amounts of data and claims data and EMR data and kind of the front end sort of practice management data. And around that time, I thought, I've got an idea. I'm going to create a performance analytics dashboard. And so I think I might have looked on LinkedIn or something and found someone that I felt like was a good person to interview in the industry. And so I took him to lunch. He was a well-known kind of data person in the Atlanta circuit. And his name is Raj Bandyopadhyay. And I took him to lunch, and I remember saying, like, this is my grand plan. Like, I'm going to, I might be a billionaire by now if I had done that, but here I am. But I took him to lunch, and I was like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I'm seeing these opportunities in the industry and healthcare, that sort of thing. And he was like, well, I just started a meetup group called Data Science ATL. We actually have a meetup this week. You should attend. And I was like, okay. And so I went to that meetup group, and the rest is kind of history. I was taken aback immediately. It sounds silly, but I get like goosebumps thinking about it. It was the most aha moment I've ever had probably in my life. My entire life I had spent just obsessed with patterns and the behavior of data and information and numbers and the relationships there. They were also nerdy, and it was just it was also over my head too at the time. And I was just, it was a wrap. This was my place and my calling. So anyways, long story short, I ended up kind of co-founding data science at ATL with Raj, and I'll talk more about this later, but I kind of served as the foundation of my company now. And kind of in parallel with this, it was one of the only master's programs in the world at this time. It was actually a master's program in predictive analytics from Northwestern. It shifted to data science, but at the time it was predictive analytics because data science wasn't really a thing. That was kind of it. It was, I still joke about, at the time for years, data science, when I would say I've got a data scientist meetup group, folks would say, like, especially like my girlfriends would say, a data scientist like meetup group. Like it was some sort of data function. I was like, no, it's a data scientist, like a data scientist. And that happened for years. And I knew data science had really gotten traction in the mainstream, I guess around 2014 or 2015 when I stopped getting that question.
So to recap all of that a little bit, basically you couldn't take to a certain degree the physical health, the physical science, medical end of healthcare, but the data you found a relationship to, you, like you said, you had sort of had a note for patterns, you were able to, sort of sift through lots of information. What did you take from that experience at Northside, which is a favorite entity of mine, simply for the fact that I was born there? What did you take from Northside that you've been able to apply in your work beyond that particular industry?
Well, beyond the most important part, which is that you were born there.
Yes, obviously, that's what Northside is known for. They have hats and mugs that say David Brandt was born here.
That's why I went to work there, actually. Thank you. So actually, that's a great question. Everything in data and sort of my relationship to the industry in general is so predicated by my experience in healthcare and with healthcare data. So healthcare is so practitioner driven, as you can imagine. It's sort of a top down, the doctors are sort of steering the ship, and there is so much data. But at the time, even a lot of the data was still stored in paper records.
Sure.
Our organization, the CEO was really a trailblazer, and she shifted to electronic records really quickly. But she was an early mover. The hospital itself was still working with a lot of paper records in 2010, 2011. So that experience in healthcare it's really kind of symbolic of some of the overarching challenges across industries with data. And you'll see that with data science in general. It's not industry specific. It's very industry agnostic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of transfer across applications in industry. I would say just some of the key challenges and opportunities within healthcare I've seen just across all industries. Another part to that is just the immense, as you can imagine, the immense opportunity and potential of healthcare data. So my dad passed away when I was 8 from cancer. And I can't help but think, I remember like for years getting to know him, I would pour through his clinical records that were in the attic every year when we decorated the Christmas tree. And to think about all of this data now, this becomes one big computer problem that can be solved. Mm-hmm. Cancer, genomics, even our standard intake information with our blood levels, our glucose levels, all these standard vitals can become really critical data points in solving a much bigger problem. The other takeaway with healthcare and healthcare data is just the massive amount of potential where data can really change the world and change our lives. And healthcare is one place where we can all really relate to it. That's our lives, and that's our loved ones and our families.
Absolutely. And I say that too, as a cancer survivor myself, who was also treated at Northside. So,
wow.
I have a real firsthand experience in that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thanks. So let's take a leap forward then to Data Science Connect. Give me a taste of the origin story. I imagine this will be part of what you share at the conference, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But one of your missions is making data science accessible to all. What is driving that mission for you?
The mission that got me here to begin with. So it was that baby meetup group that was in Atlanta that at the time was a group of 20 or 30 kind of data science aficionados that grew to 4,000, 5,000 folks back in like 2012. It was the fact that I could really reach the industry and reach some of the biggest thought leaders in the industry, which was so kind of noteworthy about the industry. It was very different from other industries in that, like, if you were curious about a certain type of data science or just data science in general, some of the most important people in the industry were the most accessible. And that was one of the most, I would say, one of the most special things about the industry, and something that's sort of driven Data Science Connect's mission in general about making data science accessible to all. Data Science Connect sort of evolved from Data Science ATL. Now we're the largest data science organization in the Southern United States and one of the largest communities in the world. And it was harder to do this in person because, as you can imagine, or as you know, in-person conferences can be really expensive, but the virtual landscape has been a really neat place to open up all of our content for free. We even do in the spirit of making data science accessible to all, we do a K-12 data science conference where we educate thousands of K-12 folks. That's sort of the premise behind the mission of making data science accessible to all, is lowering those barriers to entry for non-practitioners and for folks who wouldn't otherwise know about data science.
Well, speaking of K through 12, your website highlights a focus on working with students in those grades, providing them with presentations and hands-on workshops for any level of experience. It sounds like you're wanting to grow data science from within the public school curriculum. And if that's the case, tell us more about how your organization works with schools and kids to point the path for becoming a data scientist.
Absolutely. So I mentioned that throughout my K-12 development, I knew about nothing other than really going the pre-med route because I loved math and science. And I remember actually speaking to my uncle, who's really smart and helpful, like when I was freshly out of college, and I was like, "This is what I like to do. Like this is what I'm good at." And he was like, "Maybe you should check out being an actuary." And I remember looking it up and being like, "Oh, this sounds so boring." Like, no offense to actuaries, but he was on the right track. This was before data science was a thing, and actuaries are actually probably a classification of data scientists now, but K-12, unfortunately, is still very, like we found from our research, we do the first and only data science K-12 conference in the world. We did our first one last year. This past month was our second annual. And I don't know what the stats are in terms of just revenue, but it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of data science as an industry. And it's projected to like multiply by 2025 to be like 5 times that. Yet data science in K-12 is still pretty like untapped in K-12 curriculum, aside from probably just statistics and some math, and probably some bar charts. And so the mission behind our K-12 data science program, which is easily the coolest thing we do, is just educating the younger generations and the next generation of learners and our future in data science. And we split our curriculum, kind of our program, into 3 different audience levels. So kindergarten through 4th grade, we try to introduce them to sort of foundational data science concepts. So like I mentioned earlier, patterns, relationships, data visualization. So sort of visually representing data and the behavior of it. Our 5th graders through 8th graders, we're doing more hands-on technical stuff. Like we had a Microsoft Minecraft there, and we taught them how to code their own Minecraft game.
Minecraft is very popular for that age group. It really is. It stands out, and I think even serves to some as an introduction to coding and programming and even data science. We
actually had the director of data science of the Minecraft program speak at our conference last month for the K-12 folks. But
fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome. Francisco Rios, he's amazing. So sort of the technical mechanics behind data science for the 5th through 8th graders. And then for the 9th through 12th graders, we wanted to focus on more of how to get to a career in data science and what a day in the life of a data scientist would look like. That's sort of our K-12 shtick. And I actually had a speaker reach out to me after our first annual conference. And he's a well-known thought leader in the industry, but he said, that was really bold. Like, that was really risky what you did here. And I was like, what? Like, this is the most no-brainer thing we have ever done. Like, this, like, data science started in industry, it backed its way into grad school, and now it's an undergrad. It has to be in K-12. They're the future. So anyways, K-12 data science is a no-brainer, and it is the most rewarding thing our organization does.
Data Science Connect also has multiple events throughout the year as well. Who is your target audience for these events? Who would be interested in attending most, whether they're working in data science or not? And what are the primary tracks or areas of focus in these events?
That's a great question. So our primary audience within Data Science Connect is split almost right down the middle. We're kind of half data practitioners and half data leadership. And you'll see that reflected kind of in our programming content as well. We'll have data engineers and data scientists opening up their Jupyter notebooks and running code and sharing their GitHub profiles and just really doing a technical deep dive into their space. You'll also see the chief data officer of a Fortune 500 company speaking to their overall strategy in data science and sort of the seeing the forest through the trees perspective. So that's sort of our audience is split just right down the middle in terms of leadership versus practitioner. But we want to be accessible to everyone. So I would recommend, it's completely free. I would recommend, if you are touching data, which I imagine you are, if you're working on a computer or even wearing a watch or driving a car, I would highly recommend you take a look at our conferences, at our workshops. All of it's free. The path into data science is a very fascinating one. There are people who have gone to study religion and then end up in data science. It's such a new and sort of burgeoning industry. It's a great place to be and a great place to explore whether you think you might want a career there or whether you just kind of want to know what's going on, because it's the future.
Removing Data Science Connect from the equation for a moment, if you met somebody who was interested in exploring the field of data science, what would your recommended introduction be? Like, where would you point them to start beyond your own organization? Because obviously that's what you do. But if that wasn't a solution, how would you direct them to finding a gateway into data science?
That's a great question. I would suggest that you kind of figure out what problem you're trying to solve is. We're all trying to solve a problem, even if, like, I saw a great post on LinkedIn the other day, which is they're far and few between now. And an Uber driver had been tracking all of her routes and the time of her routes, the amount of money she was making and the location of the route, and was figuring out where her optimal sort of approach was in terms of optimizing her route to get the highest return on investment. So she was leveraging data as an Uber driver to enhance her business and to enhance her daily performance. That is even one place you can start. Another place you can start is if you're looking to kind of get your hands dirty with a larger sets of data, I would suggest going on Kaggle, KAGGLE.com. They have tons of competitions and even just a lot of use cases where there are data sets, they're real data sets where you can start kind of working through your data problem and really getting your hands dirty alongside a lot of other folks to play with large data sets and to do it in a kind of a low risk environment. A third thing that I did even in one of my earlier classes in my master's program was download some RSS feeds from, you can do it from Twitter, from just websites in general, and you can scrape that text data and start finding, you can even put together some fun word clouds and see which words are repeating more. You can start playing with some programs in Python or R, which are two of the primary open source programming languages in data science. And you can see kind of what the semantics are behind it, what the sort of the sentiment is. So if you were looking at tweets about President Trump at a certain time, you would have probably seen like positive tweets here, negative tweets here, and kind of partition them. So there's a lot of, I would suggest either taking a problem that you want to solve and just kind of getting your hands dirty there, or kind of taking a stab at Kaggle with an existing data set would be a good suggestion. Or, like I said, kind of playing with some RSS feeds and looking at kind of playing with that text data, which is still very untapped and a kind of a part of data science that's still developing.
As we mentioned at the top, you're going to be a keynote speaker at the upcoming Lean Six Sigma and Data Science Conference. We're eager to witness your presentation, but can you give our audience a little bit of a teaser?
Absolutely. So my background as a practitioner would have taken me to a more technical place, but as the founder and CEO of Data Science Connect, I've had the opportunity to sort of kind of see all of data science from a sort of the forest through the trees, and see sort of trends take place over time. Job titles come and go, applications of data science blow up. So what I'm going to talk about is sort of what I've seen trend-wise over the last 10 years in the industry of data science. Kind of what some hot takes on what's sort of being phased out, and then I'm just seeing a lot of the same kind of topics bubbling up in applications of data science that are getting really hot as well, like computer vision, graph AI, which is like graph technology, which is basically what Google's built off of, but people have been sleeping on it for years. Location data, like you mentioned earlier, we're driving, we've got our watches on, we're collecting data everywhere. We're data producers, all of us. They call that human movement data or geolocation data. So that's something else that's highly monetized now, and a lot of startups are getting a lot of funding around that. And then we're also seeing, this is very controversial, but we're also seeing just programming as a profession is just becoming a little less valuable. Whereas several years ago, that was a barrier to entry of practicing data science. Was step one, learn how to code. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a ton of low code, no code platforms now, and inherent in data science is the ability to learn and to automate and to leverage technology. And we're seeing that in with coding as well, and with coding approaches. It's less manual now, and there's less need for the manual touch. And so that's every developer who might listen to this podcast is probably going to unsubscribe from our community. But people are going to need to evolve, and that's kind of a hot take that I'm seeing that isn't really being talked about. So I look forward to kind of sharing industry insights and sort of just some trends that I'm seeing that maybe other folks haven't really seen yet, because they don't really have their finger on the pulse of this high level that I get to.
Gotcha. Well, we're certainly looking forward to hearing more of the details, but you'll also be there as an attendee. So from our Lean and Six Sigma sectors, or even some of our other data science components that will be a part of the conference, what are you hoping to gain by being an attendee of the Lean Six Sigma and Data Science Conference?
So what I didn't mention at the very beginning when you were talking about my path through Georgia Tech is one of my biggest, I'm going to say regrets, but if I could go back and do it again, I would have actually majored in industrial engineering. Undergrad.
We like to hear that all the time.
I'm like so serious. And business was important in its own way. I have a business now, but industrial engineering is foundational to data science, and it's probably was a facet of data science before data science was cool and before data science was a thing. Everything is data driven, everything is process driven, systems, that sort of thing. So I look forward to seeing how the two worlds kind of collide, and how much overlap there is there. I imagine there's going to be a ton. Data science is still it's in its nascent stages. I imagine there's going to be a ton of overlap, and I'm sure that's sort of what spawned this conference in general. So I'm looking forward to seeing sort of the industrial engineering component and role, and how heavily woven in it is into data science and vice versa.
Excellent. Well, we certainly look forward to seeing you there. Again, everybody, the Lean Six Sigma and Data Science Conference is going to happen September 19th through the 21st in Atlanta. Amelia Mink, CEO and founder of Data Science Connect, will be one of our keynote speakers. So we certainly hope to see you guys there. You can learn more about the conference at www.iise.org/lean6data. That's 6, the numeral. And you can also find out more information about IISE in general at IISE.org. Amelia, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much, David. I'll see you guys all in September. Come say hi.
You've been listening to Problem Solved, the IISE podcast, a production of the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers in Norcross, Georgia. We hope you'll share this and other problem-solved episodes with your friends and colleagues. Learn more about sponsorship and advertising opportunities, as well as how you can become a member of IISE by visiting podcast.iise.org.